Okay, so day 2, July 2nd, 2008. My sister-in-law stayed with me overnight, and it was probably the worst night of my life. And my sister-in-law will attest. She's a pediatric nurse, and she claims that she's no specialist in nursing for, wound care, but every 20 minutes I had breathing tubes and an NG tube, so, alarms and IV alarms, and I mean, every alarm possible, I swear to God, would go off every 2 seconds. And all I could do was press my button to try and knock myself out. And they'd wake me up, and, they'd want to weigh me. And then my sister-in-law would be like, she hasn't even walked yet. She can't be weighed. It's 1 o'clock. And, or they want blood pressure, or I had to get another shot or another test of this or that. Or it was just, I think I hadn't even prepared myself for how serious of a surgery I had just had, and how much care I needed. And she knew, but she put on the strong face. And I love my mother to death, but I don't think my mother could have done it, because I couldn't even do it. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm a bulldog. But I didn't even want my husband there, because I know that he's got a soft heart, but he couldn't handle what was going on, because I couldn't handle what was going on. I couldn't even talk for myself. But my sister-in-law, Chris, that woman will ever have a spot in my heart because of what she did. But she wrangled the nurses the next day and said, kind of get your crap together, do it all at once. Let's talk about the situation. You can't expect a 30-year-old woman who just slept for 2 hours with no pain meds to get up and walk with a 12-inch incision on her stomach after you just ripped the curtain up, woke her up out of a dead sleep when we're trying to get her to rest, and then do it 20 minutes later because you want her weight. Let's talk about her care and how we can do it better and how she needs to rest. Because they would say, okay, we need to start walking, and I know walking is the fastest road to recovery. I know that. I've heard it. You hear it on Grey's Anatomy. You've heard it probably with your grandparents or somebody who's been sick. And I knew I had to do it, and I dreaded it. I remember in her said, let's get up and walk to the chair, and I remember bawling. I wouldn't even speak. I would just cry because I knew what that meant. And I would say, okay, 1 hour. And, I'd bargain with them. And they just said, you have to. It's the only way you're going to get better. And I remember the first time I walked, I was pressing it. My sister-in-law said, every 10 minutes, press, your Dilaudid. Drug yourself up. And I had to literally twist my body. Then they had to lift my bed and help me pull myself up, and I remember screaming with pain, and then once I'm sitting in that position, which is just sitting on the end of the bed, trying to stand, and before this, it took about 20 minutes to unhook me and rehook me to what I needed to have to be able to even walk, which is, your catheter, your IVs, pain meds, the things on my feet, and my NG tubes, my breathing tubes, all of that. I mean, it's a process in itself to even pee. That's probably why they put a catheter in. And I remember having to stand up. And I had 2 nurses on the side of me, and they even had belted me. I mean, I felt like I had broken both hips. And standing for the first time was the most excruciating pain. And I don't want to be dramatic about it, because I don't think there's anything dramatic about it, because they told me it was going to be worse than anything I would imagine, because it was cutting through every nerve and every muscle I had in my stomach, and that would all have to regrow back together. So any movement you make, which is everything, you move your leg, it affects your stomach. You breathe, you eat, you sneeze, you laugh, you cough. Everything kind of, your belly moves with it. And I remember being so conscious of not smiling, not coughing, not laughing, not talking, not moving, whatever I could do to stop that pain, I wanted nothing to do with. And I remember standing up and just bawling. And I walked to the door and I said, I want to go back to bed. And they said, can we get you to sit in the chair? And I said, nope, lay back in the bed. And that was the worst pain I probably had ever felt in my entire life. And I had seen my doctor that morning, and Dr. Dickinson, he was very soft-spoken and an amazing surgeon. He saved my life. And I remember he just saying, you were lucky, and I was so lucky in what could have, happened. And he just said, you're going to have to be patient with me. This is going to take time for it to heal. And there began my wait of sitting in bed, learning how to walk, eating a popsicle once every 8 hours, and then having it sucked back out. And kind of the switch off of my sister-in-law and my mom, because it was pretty much the only two people I could allow to see me like that, and the people that could deal with me in the state that I was in. My husband came once an hour, because, I'd be crossing my legs, and he'd say, can you do that? Is that safe? Because he was so worried. He didn't even know what to think. I didn't ask what was going on or what had happened to me. I didn't ask how severe it was. I remember just staring out my window and thinking, this is my life right now. This sucks. I hate everything. My husband would be texting me, Viv misses you. She wants to come see you. Can she come see you? And I'd say, no, I've got tubes in my nose. No. I didn't want to see anyone because it was miserable to talk. I couldn't smile. I couldn't even pee myself yet. I would only let my husband come up an hour because I just had no energy. I didn't want to watch TV. I didn't want to read a book. I didn't want to do anything. So I sat in my thoughts of what the hell am I going to do? I remember looking at my mom a couple times, and the look in her eye, as a mother, I can only imagine, was one probably I felt too. What is my daughter going to come out of like this? How do you come back from this? After we had all seen the incision, we were all very shocked. And what happens next? Nobody knows. My mom is very bullheaded in what she can do, and what she can do. She can fill out paperwork. She can get the nurses. She can yell, scream, but she can't fix her daughter's tummy. She can't make her daughter walk. I had to do it. And she kept being, so positive, and I don't think I would even respond. I just didn't care at that point. Because I didn't know, how do I go on? Why did I deserve at 30 to have this happen, right? The most bizarre thing, right? A perforated ulcer at 30. They're very rare, and they have very, very high mortality rates because of how severe they are. And if you don't catch them in a very certain amount of time, they end up in death. And I remember my sister, she's very strong. I mean, she's one of the strongest women I know. She does better when she's helping. She doesn't do good sitting by a bed. She doesn't want to sit by a bed. Kind of like my husband. My husband is not good sitting by a bed. He's good doing something. So him and my sister and his family banded together, and they took care of Vivian around the clock. They cleaned my house. They did my laundry, and my mom and my sister-in-law, Luke, came an hour a day. I had one girlfriend, Kendra, come. She had kind of been through my stress journey, and I trusted her, and I knew she was coming from a good place and wanting to see me, and so she came. But there was a lot of people I didn't see, and I didn't want to see because I didn't even want to see myself. My mom had to bathe me. She had to give me a shower, and I remember sitting there naked, holding a towel to my wound with my arms in plastic because I had so many veins in, and just feeling ashamed. Not ashamed of my body, but just ashamed of how did I get to this point? And so I sat and I sat and I sat and I guess at some point, I don't remember when it was, but I think I looked at my mom and just said, I'm done with the stressors. I can't do it. Because my recovery time was 8 weeks. And I looked at my mom and I said, those decisions we had to make right before I had my ulcer, I think God made them for me today. And she said, yep. And my husband said, yep. And I thought, okay. And so at that moment, I decided that God was giving me a gift. And it wasn't the way that I wanted the gift. I wanted it on a silver platter. No. He had to put me in a situation where it was life or death and shut me up and slow me down and say, look here, you're not making the right decisions. I'm going to make them for you. And my family got on board and they all just said, your health is obviously so affected by these stressors. We are going to do whatever we can to prevent this from happening again because we will lose you. You will die. My doctors, you will die if you continue down this path. I'm 30. I'm 30. I have a husband and a daughter. And I thought, okay, that decision that had been weighing in my mind for months is made. It's done. Okay. So, what is holding me back now? What is there to be upset about? If that had been something that had been causing me to be so physically ill that this ulcer had been cultivating and then had perforated, okay, I am not going to let that stress of stupid day-to-day life own me anymore. How dumb is it to die over something that doesn't mean anything at the end of the day? You can't take it with you. What would it have meant to my 4.5-year-old? Nothing. What would it have meant to me? Nothing. Just my own self-doubt and insecurities. And I remember, for some reason, I made a decision that I was done. And I was going to get myself out of that freaking hospital because I was starving, for one. And I was done. I wanted to go home. My daughter saw me once, and it was the worst experience of my life. And I was sick of tubes, and I was sick of meds, and I was sick of alarms, and I was just sick of it all. I just wanted to be home. I didn't care what it took. So I would make my nurses and my mom put 6 walks. I would be doing laps around the hospital wings, and my mom would just be like, holy crap, like, you're really cooking. I'm like, yep, let's do another one. And then she'd check it off for me. And I just kept pushing myself because I was like, I will do whatever. And I kept asking, what can I do to get out? And they just said, patience, we have to let this heal. And eventually on the 5th day, they did a test where they brought me down to radiology and they injected a dye through my NG tube. And then they kind of rotated my body. And so the radiologist was standing next to me and he was watching where the dye was going. And the test was to see if the dye would go into the cavity of where my intestines sat, where it went in originally and was hurting so bad. And that was the test to see, is this patch going to hold? And that's why they hadn't let me eat or disturb it at all, because they needed it to heal. And I passed. And I remember being so excited, being like, I passed the test. And my nurse came in shortly after and said, okay, the NG2 is coming out. That's the best news because that means you start a liquid diet. So you can start taking medications orally versus having to have everything injected into you under the sun. I had 3 IVs. I mean, it was out of control. Little did I know how deep an NG tube goes because it's all, from here all the way down to the bottom of your stomach. Is this going to hurt? And she said, probably. Why don't you press your Dilaudid button one more time? And I pressed it, and she pulled it, and I remember just seeing human flesh coming off of it. And she said, that's from before. She's like, no, drink. And I quickly drank, and it was out. And I remember I had called my mom right before. I said, they're taking it out. Can you get here? And I think she was just taking a nap. And she walked in, and she said, Katie, you don't have anything on your face. And I said, I know. And they let me order food. And I think I ordered a grilled cheese and some rice. And I wasn't interested at all. And I remember asking the nurse over and over again, when will my doctor let me go home if I can tolerate this grilled cheese? Because that's the test. If you can tolerate food, you can tolerate meds, you can go home to rest. And they released me that night. Painkillers, had a girdle. My mom put me in the car, and they said, take it easy. We'll see you in 2 weeks, but, you got to change dressing, all this kind of stuff. Little did I know how different a Dilaudid drip is compared to Percocet, because I went from being on constant pain medication to laying flat on my back in my bed going, this is painful. But I was out of the hospital. I was alive. And I had a scar, but I didn't give a shit about the scar. The scar was funny to me at that point. I'm like, oh my God, I have a cool story. I'm alive. And I wasn't constipated. And everyone treated me like glass. And so my family was so amazing on both sides. I mean, my sisters, they had planned everything. So they were picking up Vivi. They didn't want me to have, no driving, of course, when you're on meds. But even after that, I couldn't lift or, push anything. So everything had been taken care of. And my husband was a dream husband. But I had made that one decision. And I remember making the call and feeling like nothing better in the world. Because I felt like at that point, God had put me in a situation where I took my life back. And yes, this perforated ulcer seems so bizarre, right? It's this one factor. But my rheumatologist, who came in the next day after my surgery to see me, he said, this is an all-encompassing disease. You got that ulcer because you have lupus and stress. And I put you in autoimmune, which suppressed it's like chemo treatments. So my body was going through chemo treatments, taking steroids, high doses. My body doesn't fight well against anything. I mean, my daughter sneezes on me and I have a cold for a month. And then dealing with the other stressors, he said to me too, he said, you're done. I cannot support you as your physician. You will die. I will write to whoever I need to, but those stressors in your life need to stop. And I took control of my life. And that was the biggest gift. I don't think I've ever been so happy in my life. And people kept saying, you just had surgery yesterday? A week ago, you're really peppy. I'm like, yeah, you want to see the scar? It's actually a blessing in disguise. Could have been way worse. And from that day on, I mean, I think I've maybe had 2 sad days, but it's been a month post-op. And I don't think I've ever been happier in my life. And there may be some major consequences. And when I say major consequences, I may mean with my insurance or financially. But that means nothing in the scheme of things. I'm alive. I'm here for my daughter. I'm here for my husband. And I'm excited to be alive again. And I'm 30. And I get to make the call. I am Katie. Hear me roar. And it had been so long since I was able to make a decision like that for myself. I think getting a perforated ulcer at 30 and almost 9 was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The best thing. And I think most of my family and friends will tell you the exact same thing. I mean, I was trying to redecorate and paint furniture. I mean, they're like, stop, Katie, stop. Taking control of my life and realizing what a gift my life is, was, and continually be, because I have to be so careful with my body now. And I'm going to make the choice to cherish it. And that's my choice to make, not anyone else's. No one will put stress on me that I don't want. So I have permission to remove those barriers that I believe are toxic. And for some reason, and I mean, most people know who I am and that I'm a bulldog, right? But I think I internalize everything. Ulcer, aka, that I had no idea existed. That I never was doing what was good for me. I was doing what was good for everyone else and stuffing it. And for the first time, my body reacted and said, no more. So I said no more. My husband said no more. My mom said no more. My dad said no more. My sister said no more. My doctor said no more. That gave me the power to say no more. And it was, I don't know how to describe it. I took my life back. I'm 30. There has got to be something better than worry and stress at 30. Life is too short. Who cares? I don't care. I could live in a box. I don't give a shit. I'm alive. So what this huge transformation started was from this perforated ulcer. This funny little ulcer that I love that gave me a 12-inch scar that changed my life. I think it scared the shit out of a lot of people. And it really brought to light what lupus can do to you. People think it's an invisible disease. I think my husband was like, lupus did this? And my mom, she said it has been the worst week of my entire life. My mom is corporate America, hard ass, HR. I mean, this woman doesn't flinch. I mean, she's yelling. You do not mess with my mother, right? I mean, she gets stuff done. And she sat and looked at me for a week. And she just said, I think that was the roughest week of my life. And I can imagine in 6 years to tell me that it was the roughest week of her life. Even though I thought it was rough because of what I was going through. I'm sure she was thinking, what is my daughter thinking? I almost lost her. At 30. So it brought so much light into why I'm here, who I'm here for, who should be in my life and who shouldn't. Because people, when you're going through situations like that, don't come around. And the ones that do love you are there. Special call out to my friend Kendra, who was my rock and barrier. I mean, the biggest introvert, and I'm the biggest extrovert. That woman would stay up painting furniture with me until 5 a.m. because I had anxiety. There's certain people, and, we weren't even that close, and I one day just spilled my guts to her. And all of a sudden we were BFFs. Me and Kendra, the weirdest couple of friends. She's come to doctor's appointments with me. Things I don't trust anyone with, that I don't even want my husband to come with because I'm worried. I know she'll be able to handle it in a situation where she knows what I need to hear, or how I need to react, or she knows I need a driver. So there's blessings in disguise. I gained a new best friend, and I love her. I mean, I would literally smooch her right now for the things that she's done for me out of just, God, the kindness of her heart. And it teaches me to just be kind back. And so all of these great things are starting to happen now for me. And that's a journey I'm going to tell you about. But I want to tell you about the surgery and why this is the start of something so brand new. So this will be my lupus journey, because right now I'm off all my lupus medication, because they will have to do plastic surgery on my face. I had a discoid lesion that got infected with staph because of the hospital tubes, of course, right? Let's add on top of it. So my rheumatologist thought that I needed to see my dermatologist. My dermatologist thought I had cancer. And anyways, we have talked to plastic surgery, and we are going to cut that out. I will also have to get scoped September 5th to make sure there aren't any other peptic ulcers going on and that the patch is held. And so I can't be on any autoimmune suppressants because that will hurt me during anesthesia, any recovery process. Steroids are out of the picture, which was my go-to for lupus. I had an ache, a pain, a swollen joint. Steroid. I can't take aspirin, or no, it's not aspirin. Ibuprofen, anything like that. It's out of my book for life. So now I'm learning how to cope in a world full of pain that I've never experienced. I'm trying to be very mindful with the sun, even more so than I ever have been. I mean, hats and sunscreen, and, you know, I wear body protectants, and, you know, just even being in the car in the sun will cause me to flare. And so we'll talk about what flares look like, but I don't want another flare because I'm so scared of what, you know, I'll look like a monster, or, which is kind of funny because I throw a Princess Band-Aid on and I'm like, hey, what's up? You want to talk about my Frankenstein face? You know, let's add to it. It's on my tummy. So we'll talk about kind of all of my journey, but I wanted to give you the background on why this was so significant to me and why I felt so empowered to talk about it openly and proudly. I'm not embarrassed of it. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not worried what others are going to think about it. It's just is what it is. And so I'm just bringing some light so that family, friends, people who are struggling with it, who are going through it, who are newly diagnosed, old diagnosis, you know, listen to a different story. It took me probably 10 million Google searches just to find something relatively similar. Lupus is not the same. My story will not be your story. But I hope that something you can take from what I'm saying will help. And I'll get into the, you know, the drugs I'm taking, and I'm going to document my whole procedures and chronicles. We'll see if my rheumatologist will participate. He's my warrior. I think he will. He's a smart guy. But I think it's great to get both perspectives, because finding a good doctor is step one. Step two, being your own advocate. Because you are teaching everyone else about your disease other than your rheumatologist. So I'm here just to talk about lupus. Teach me about lupus. I'm excited about this. So thanks again for listening, and I hope the story kind of makes sense. Please ask questions, leave comments if you have anything. I just wanted to be transparent about it, bring some awareness to it. Take care of yourself. Smile. Kiss your babies. Don't stress about the small stuff, because shit, it's small stuff. You're still breathing. Could be worse. You could be dead. That was my ongoing joke. Everyone would say, how are you? Could be worse. Could be dead. And it's true, because I could be. So take that with you every day, that you are alive, you're breathing. Be thankful, be grateful. Work is work. One, friend fight is one friend fight. You can say you're sorry. remember what's important and take it with you. And start focusing on what is around you and what you are blessed with. And use those gifts for good, because this is only a short period of time. We've got so much to give. If we don't give, where do we end up? And that's the journey I'm on now. I have no idea what my future looks like. None. Other than I'm bound and determined to help someone. I'm not sure who. If it's just me, that's okay. I'm sure my therapist would be super proud of me. But I don't know. Let's help each other. You tell me, I'll tell you. I'm going to end quickly with just some things that I do that are exciting for me. I used to do yoga, or was trying to right before, I almost killed over. You Are a Badass, I'm reading. One really cool mindful thing. It's called Start Where You Are. And it's reflective of just different situations you've been in life. And it's really great to start fresh. If you've had PTSD, anxiety, depression, stress, it just talks about the fears in your life and how you can put it on paper so that it becomes real. Things I'm doing for my daughter. It's 3,000 questions about me. Oh my God, how can you not love that? My top 10 list. So like my top 10 favorite foods, movies. It's kind of interesting because sometimes I'm like, shit, I don't even know. I like macaroni and cheese. And then the story of my life. So it asks questions like, what was your favorite memory as a teenager? So I'm trying to remember and write positive things to make a stash for my daughter, because I think she'll think I'm a loser when I'm older. So right now I can't do a whole lot other than paint and write and blog now. So those are the kind of the cool things that I'm working on. I got some of these at Target. You can find them on Amazon. If you have any questions, let me know, but that helps me. Chalk painting helps me the most, old furniture, but my husband hates chalk paint. I mean, he literally thinks that I paint everything in this house. So I'm trying something different. So that was today, but I will check in tomorrow, and thanks for listening.